I had been living in the Willow Creek Apartments in Denver, Colorado for only 9 days when the man from 2B tried to get me thrown out. It happened at 1:17 in the morning. Someone pounded on my door so hard the frame shook. When I opened it, half the third floor was standing in the hallway in pajamas, coats, and slippers, staring at me like I was an animal that had escaped a cage. The man in front was Harold Boone, a retired security guard with a thick, gray mustache and a face already red from anger. "There he is," Harold shouted. "That's the guy. Every night, same time, he starts yelling through the walls like a drunk at a football game." Behind him, Mrs. Patricia Vance, the chairwoman of the resident council, held a clipboard like it gave her legal power. She looked me up and down and said, "Mr. Turner, this building has elderly residents. We have children. We have people who work early shifts. You cannot move in and treat this place like a bar." A woman behind her raised her phone and started recording. "Put his face online," someone said. "Let people see what kind of man screams at night and then hides." I looked at all of them, then slowly pulled out my phone. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt hollow. I typed one sentence and turned the screen toward them. "How is a man who was born nonverbal supposed to scream?" For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Harold's mouth stayed open, but no sound came out. Mrs. Vance blinked twice, then frowned like my disability was an inconvenience to her argument. "Don't play games," she said. "You can type anything you want. We all heard you." Harold lifted his own phone. "I have proof." He pressed play. A distorted male voice filled the hallway. It was ugly and cracked, half laughing, half chanting, like someone trying to scare children through a wall. Then came 3 loud shouts. The neighbors flinched, even though they had heard it before. Harold pointed at me. "That is him. Every night at 1:17. The sound comes right up through my ceiling. My blood pressure was 180 this morning because of this punk." The hallway turned on me again. "He looks quiet, but that's how they fool you. Probably records himself and plays it back. New tenant and already a problem." I typed as fast as I could, but a phone screen cannot fight a mob. I could feel it happening. They had already decided what kind of man I was. Rude, guilty, dangerous, easy to blame. I typed another message and pushed the screen toward Mrs. Vance. "Give me 20 minutes. I am calling my ASL interpreter." She laughed once, sharp and cold. "An interpreter? At 1 in the morning?" I typed back, "Yes, because apparently being unable to speak is not enough evidence for you." That made the hallway quieter. Mrs. Vance looked around, realizing too many phones were recording for her to refuse. Finally, she said, "Fine, 20 minutes. But if this is some trick, I promise you, this building will not tolerate it." 22 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up outside. A woman in a navy coat came through the front entrance carrying a leather folder. Her name was Dana Lewis. She was a certified ASL interpreter I had worked with for years. She stepped between me and the crowd. "My name is Dana Lewis," she said. "I am here to interpret for Eli Turner. I will relay exactly what he signs. No additions, no opinions." I signed. Dana spoke. "Eli says he has been nonverbal since birth. He has medical documentation and is willing to provide it to police, management, or a court. He did not make the sounds in that recording. He is physically unable to produce those sounds." I took a folded medical letter from my drawer and handed it to Dana. She showed it to Mrs. Vance. The official stamp from Children's Hospital Colorado was still visible. So were the dates. So was the diagnosis history. The crowd got uncomfortable. Harold did not. He stepped closer. "That paper proves nothing. He could still be playing recordings. He could be using some voice app. People fake everything now." I signed again. Dana translated. "Eli says the voice in your recording does not match his age, his medical condition, or anything inside his apartment. He also says if the recording has been edited or planted, he will request forensic analysis." That word changed Harold's face. Forensic. It was only one word, but it landed like a dropped glass. Mrs. Vance snapped her clipboard shut. "Then let's settle this now. If you have nothing to hide, open your apartment and let us inspect it." I stared at her. She smiled like she had finally trapped me. "If you are innocent, we will apologize. If we find equipment, you sign a formal nuisance admission tonight." I typed one line. "You are not police." Mrs. Vance read it, then turned to the crowd. "See? He refuses." The hallway erupted. "Open it." "Guilty." Why else would he hide? Harold slammed his palm against my door, and that was the moment I understood something that changed the rest of my life. They did not want proof. They wanted permission. Permission to enter. Permission to accuse. Permission to crush someone who could not shout back. Mrs. Vance pushed past me first. I did not invite her in. I did not step aside willingly. But when 12 angry neighbors moved as one body, my small entryway became useless. They flooded into my apartment. My living room had taken me 2 weekends to arrange. A small gray couch, a thrifted walnut table, framed photographs from places I had visited alone because silence makes travel easier than people think. Within 30 seconds, strangers were touching everything. Check behind the TV, Mrs. Vance ordered. Look for speakers, microphones, recording equipment. Harold went straight for my office corner. That should have warned me. He did not look lost. He did not wander. He moved like a man going to a place he had already pictured in his head. Drawers opened. Books were pulled from shelves. A neighbor lifted my laundry basket as if a screaming man might be hiding under my towels. Another woman opened my kitchen cabinets and sniffed as if guilt had a smell. Dana raised her voice. Everyone needs to stop. This is not legal. You do not have consent. Someone snapped. You're paid by him. Of course you'll defend him. A man in a bathrobe blocked her path. Stay out of it. Dana kept trying to reach me, but the room swallowed her words. Then Harold shouted, "Found it." Every head turned. He was kneeling beside my desk, holding a small black voice recorder with a strip of gray tape hanging from its back. My heart dropped. I had never seen it before. Harold held it high like a trophy. It was taped under the desk. Look at this. Timer mode, speaker output. He has been playing the file every night and acting innocent. Mrs. Vance rushed over. Play it. Harold pressed a button. The same distorted voice filled my apartment. The same laugh. The same broken chanting. The same 3 shouts. The neighbors exploded. I knew it. He made us feel crazy. Born nonverbal, my foot. He didn't need a voice. The woman filming stepped closer to me. Look at him. Not even sorry. Dana tried to speak again, but Harold turned on her. You should be ashamed. Helping a liar use disability as a shield. Mrs. Vance reached into her clipboard folder and pulled out a printed document. That was when I saw how prepared they were. The title read, Resident Nuisance Admission and Behavioral Compliance Agreement. My name was already typed at the top. Sign this, she said. You admit responsibility for the nightly disturbance, agree to stop immediately, pay the council's administrative fee, and accept eviction if it happens again. I read the page. There were blanks for date, signature, and witness. Everything else was already written. I looked at her, then at Harold. He was breathing hard, but his eyes were bright. Not angry now, excited. This had never been about sleep. I picked up the pen. Mrs. Vance smiled. Good, finally. Instead of signing, I wrote one word across the page. No. Then I tore the paper in half. The room erupted so violently that even the windows seemed to shake. He destroyed the agreement. Call the police. He's dangerous. Mrs. Vance pointed at me. That proves consciousness of guilt. I walked to my laptop on the kitchen counter. Nobody stopped me because nobody thought I could do anything useful. That was their mistake. I turned the laptop around and typed a sentence in a blank document. You should have looked up before you planted it. The shouting died. Not slowly, instantly. Harold's face changed first. The red drained away, leaving him the color of old paper. Mrs. Vance squinted. What does that mean? I pressed play. 3 months earlier, someone had stolen packages from the building lobby. Management did nothing. So I bought 2 small cloud cameras. One faced my front door. The other sat high on a bookshelf in my living room, angled toward the entryway and office corner. It recorded motion automatically. It uploaded everything. And it had been recording since the moment Mrs. Vance pushed into my apartment. On the screen, the mob entered. Then Harold appeared in the office corner. While everyone else searched, he turned his shoulder to block the view from the room. But he forgot the camera above him. The footage showed his right hand reach into the pocket of his robe. It showed him pull out the black voice recorder. It showed him peel the tape. It showed him press the recorder under my desk, wait 3 seconds, then step back and shout, "Found it." The video kept playing. Nobody spoke. Not Mrs. Vance, not Harold, not the woman filming me. Her phone was still raised, still recording, now capturing the laptop screen that destroyed her own story. I typed another sentence. That is the first real evidence anyone brought tonight. Dana, who had been pushed against the wall, looked at the footage, then at Harold. Her voice went cold. "Do not touch anything. I am calling the police." Harold snapped out of his frozen panic. "That is edited. He edited it. People can fake video now." Dana looked at the neighbors. "He has been standing in front of you the entire time." Harold pointed at me with a shaking hand. "He planned this. He knew we were coming." I typed, "I did not know you were coming. I knew people like you eventually do something stupid." Dana read it aloud. Mrs. Vance stepped toward the laptop. I shut it halfway and put my hand on top. Then I typed on my phone, "Touch it and I add destruction of evidence." Dana translated. Mrs. Vance stopped. For the first time that night, she looked less like a leader and more like a woman suddenly remembering she was not actually in charge of the world. The police arrived 17 minutes later. 2 Denver officers came in, one older, one younger. Mrs. Vance tried to meet them at the door before anyone else could speak. "Officers, thank goodness. We have a resident creating repeated noise disturbances and refusing accountability. Tonight he became aggressive and destroyed a compliance agreement." The older officer looked past her at my apartment. Books on the floor, cabinet doors open, my desk drawers dumped out. A dozen neighbors standing inside a home that was not theirs. His expression changed. Dana stepped forward. "Officers, my name is Dana Lewis. I am a certified ASL interpreter for Eli Turner, the resident. He is nonverbal from birth. This group entered his apartment without consent, searched his belongings, attempted to force him to sign a false admission, and Mr. Boone planted a device under his desk. The planting was captured on a cloud security camera." The younger officer looked at Harold. Harold lifted both hands. "She's lying. They're together. This is some kind of setup." I held up my phone. "My name is Eli Turner. I did not make the sounds. I did not own the device Harold Boone claimed to find. My camera recorded him planting it. The footage is backed up online. I can provide the link." The older officer read the message twice. "You have the footage available now?" I nodded. I opened the cloud app. This time, everyone watched the video again under police silence. Harold tried to interrupt twice. The older officer told him, "Stop talking." The black recorder was placed in an evidence bag. Harold's phone was taken after he admitted it was the same phone used to play the original complaint recording in the hallway. Mrs. Vance's clipboard folder was photographed, including 2 more copies of the same pre-written admission document. One neighbor whispered, "We didn't know." Dana heard it. She turned and said, "You did not need to know everything to know this was wrong." Nobody answered. The woman who had filmed the whole thing suddenly lowered her phone. The younger officer noticed. "We'll need that recording too." She looked like she might faint. The forensic report came back 12 days later. The voice recorder Harold planted had his fingerprints on the battery cover and my fingerprints nowhere. The tape adhesive matched a roll found in his kitchen drawer. The audio file inside it had been created 2 days before the confrontation, but that was only the planted evidence. The real sound had been coming from somewhere else entirely. A maintenance technician found a weatherproof Bluetooth speaker hidden inside an unused dryer vent between the 2nd and 3rd floors. The vent ran beside Harold's apartment, then up behind mine, then into the hall ceiling. In an old building like Willow Creek, sound did strange things. It traveled through metal and pipe, bounced behind drywall, and came out wherever people were most ready to believe it came from. The speaker had been paired to Harold's phone. The file history showed a scheduled automation. Every night at 1:17, the same edited voice played for 4 minutes. The raw voice underneath the distortion was Harold's. He had recorded himself shouting nonsense phrases, lowered the pitch, added echo, layered a laugh, and turned it into something ugly enough to scare people. The motive was smaller than anyone wanted to admit. Harold's son was moving from Kansas to Colorado after a divorce. He wanted my unit because it had been renovated, had better light, and came with one of the few covered parking spaces in the building. Harold had asked management whether my lease could be reviewed because I was new. Management said no. So Harold made me a problem. He picked me because I was quiet. He picked me because I lived alone. He picked me because he thought a man who could not speak would be easy to bury under everyone else's noise. The resident council had helped him do it. Not officially, maybe, not with signatures or meeting minutes, but with something worse. Confidence. The kind of confidence that grows when people stop asking, "Is this true?" and start asking, "How do we punish him?" The neighbor's video went online before management could contain it. She had meant to post a public shaming clip. The title she typed first was, "New Tenant Caught After Tormenting Entire Building." But after police took her phone and the story changed, someone else posted a screen recording from the hallway and apartment. The version that spread was 28 minutes long. It began with Harold yelling at me while I held up my phone saying, "How is a man who was born nonverbal supposed to scream?" It ended with a security video showing Harold planting the recorder under my desk. By the end of the week, millions of people had watched it. The comments were brutal, not toward me, toward them. He chose a nonverbal man because he thought he couldn't defend himself. The interpreter tried to stop them, and they treated her like an obstacle. That line about looking up before planting it? Coldest thing I've ever seen. Mob justice is just bullying with witnesses. Local news picked it up first, then a national disability rights organization called Dana. Then 2 lawyers contacted me through a nonprofit legal clinic in Boulder. For most of my life, people had treated my silence as empty space. Now everyone wanted to hear what I had to say. I agreed to file suit. The complaint named Harold Boone first: harassment, defamation, evidence tampering, unlawful entry, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and disability discrimination. Mrs. Vance was named for organizing the entry, attempting to coerce a false admission, and abusing her position in the resident council. 5 neighbors were named for participating in the search and for recorded threats. The property owner was not pleased, not because he suddenly became noble, but because lawsuits make landlords discover morality fast. The resident council was suspended within 48 hours. Within a month, it was dissolved. Harold tried to apologize through his attorney. I refused to accept it privately. If he wanted mercy, he had to ask for it in the same place he had tried to destroy me, in front of witnesses. The mediation took place in a beige conference room in downtown Denver. Harold sat on one side with his lawyer. Mrs. Vance sat 2 chairs away from him and did not look at anyone. The neighbors looked smaller without a hallway behind them. Dana sat beside me. Before money was discussed, I asked to give a statement. I had written it the night before. Dana read it aloud. "I have never had a voice. That does not mean I have never had words. That night, you entered my home because you believed silence was weakness. You believed that if enough people shouted, my truth would disappear under yours." Harold did not only plant a device, he planted a story. Mrs. Vance watered it. The rest of you stood around it and called it proof. You saw a man typing on a phone and decided that was less human than a man yelling in a hallway. You pushed away the person helping me communicate, then claimed I would not explain myself. You tried to make me sign a confession for a voice I could not make, for a crime I did not commit, in a home you had already violated. The worst part was not that one man lied. The worst part was how many people were relieved to believe him, because believing him gave you permission to stop seeing me as a neighbor. I am not asking this room to feel sorry for me. I am asking this room to remember that silence is not guilt, disability is not deception, and a crowd can be wrong even when every person in it feels certain. Dana stopped reading. No one moved. Harold stared at the table. Mrs. Vance wiped her cheek once quickly, as if even her tears were embarrassed to be seen. The settlement was large enough that Harold had to sell his truck and take a loan against his retirement account. Mrs. Vance paid less, but enough to hurt. The named neighbors paid individual amounts based on what the video showed them doing. The building had to install hallway cameras, rewrite its accommodation policy, hire a real property management company, and require disability rights training before any resident could serve in a future governance role. Harold's son never moved into my unit, and I did not stay there. People expected me to leave because I was afraid. That was not true. I left because I had won, and winning meant I got to choose where my peace lived. Before I moved, a few neighbors came to apologize. One man from the 4th floor stood at my door with a grocery bag full of things he had taken from my kitchen while searching and forgotten to put back. He said, "I got carried away." I wrote on my whiteboard, Carried by what? He stared at the words for a long time. Then he said, by everyone else. I wrote again. That is not an answer. That is the problem. He nodded, and for once he did not defend himself. Mrs. Vance left a letter under my door. It was 3 pages long and used the word regret 8 times. It used the word sorry once. I mailed it back unopened. Harold never came. I did not expect him to. My new apartment was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, on the top floor of a quiet building near a street lined with cottonwood trees. The walls were thick. The neighbors nodded instead of stared. The nights were full of ordinary sounds, cars passing, pipes settling, someone walking a dog under the yellow streetlights. On my second week there, the woman across the hall knocked and handed me a note. My brother is deaf. I know some ASL. Welcome to the building. I read it twice. Then I signed, thank you. She smiled and signed back, a little rusty but clear. You are welcome. For some reason, that almost broke me more than the hallway in Denver had. Kindness is dangerous that way. It touches places anger cannot reach. Months later, Dana texted me. Final settlement payment confirmed. Case officially closed. It was 1:17 in the morning when the message arrived. I looked at the time and waited for my body to react. No pounding, no shouting, no distorted voice crawling through the walls. Just 1:17. Just a number on a screen. I walked to the window and looked out over the quiet street. For most of my life, people assumed silence meant absence. No voice, no argument, no sound, no power, no shouting, no defense. Harold believed that. Mrs. Vance believed that. The mob believed that. They were wrong. I did not need to outshout them. I only needed to outlast them. They brought noise, I brought evidence. They brought a crowd, I brought the truth. And in the end, the truth did what my voice never could. It filled the whole room.